Aside from the incident in Uvalde, my family is from Acuña del Rio, so Uvalde is always, like, we drive through it, and anytime we go to visit family, so that felt like our kids too. And this honestly was probably like the hardest thing to write, and so it's just very kind of brief and a call to remind us of what we need to do. The news is on. I reach for the remote. Choices. There are always choices. Turn it up. Turn it down. Change the channel. Turn it off. It's the end of the day, and I'm tired. The Texas heat is relentless. I woke up early. Not enough coffee today. Work was exhausting. The house is a mess. Dinner isn't made. The dogs need to go out. I still have to take out the trash, do the laundry, and have the kids even eaten today? I'm tired. So tired. Choices. There are always choices. And choices have consequences. Sometimes small, until they're not. Until children don't come home, until they go hungry, until they are swept away in rising currents, until they scream as mommy or papi are dragged away, until we fail. Your babies, my kiddos, our children. We fail them because we don't choose to care. Because tuning out feels so much easier than tuning in. But silence is a choice too. And it's costing us everything. It's costing us everything. Choices. There are always choices. Let's please start choosing better.
I'm not really sure how anyone speaks after that. So. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Again, thank you all for being here tonight, and we hope to see you again tomorrow at our performance at the Latino Cultural Center. I am Maddie Frampton Herrera, and I'm co-founder of Herrera Dance Project, and we're gonna get to it, because I think Fabian said all of it. What do y'all think?
Sorry.
All right, we're gonna introduce our panel. We have Mr. Reyes. He is the surviving teacher. Mr. Cazares, Jacklyn Cazares' father. Miss Natalie Hadaad.
Well, good evening to all of you. I'll introduce myself quickly so you don't think me of just a random person up here invading your space. My name is Natalie Hadaad, and I'm currently a news reporter for WFAA, that's the ABC station here in town, Channel 8, if you happen to still watch local news. And more often than not, I am reporting on Texas politics. And it was not always that way, but it did get that way when the Robb Elementary School shooting happened. There is a unwritten, I don't even know that I'd call it unwritten, there is a rule in journalism that we are not to be biased, we are to be balanced, we are not to share our opinions or our feelings. But I've been doing this long enough, and I feel comfortable enough in my own skin and in my career to say that, there are places where you draw the line. And that line was crossed for me when I arrived at Uvalde the night shooting, and people were still gathered in the center of town. And if you've ever been to Uvalde, there is a large fountain there that now holds memorials for those who died at Robb Elementary School. And those are guttural screams and cries and ache that you do not forget. And so that day, the line was crossed for me. And even to this week, when a court ruled that shooting records would have to be released to the public, I report on Uvalde and all of its investigations, and I don't think there is a world in which I will stop. Because as it was alluded to earlier, there is need for conversation, there is need for change, and I'll be damned if I'm not a part of it.
Let's give her a hand, yes.
Because tonight I am a moderator, sure, but before I am a moderator, before I am a journalist, I'm also a mom. I'm a mom. She's only 18 months old, not even, but one day she will walk into these classrooms, and if I may say so, pardon my language, I'm scared shitless. And I think here in Texas we have fair reason to be. So know that tonight, while I am moderating this as a journalist, that is how I was found to be a part of this event. I'm also a mom. I'm also just like you. And I'm also seeking to do advocacy and to see change. And I think if my employer were here, I'd get in a lot of trouble for this. Maybe. But I'm a human first and journalist second. And I hope you can see that, or at least feel that from my heart. Okay. Let's start with the conversation, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it. I talked to our panel before coming out, and I made very clear that it is not the intent tonight to have them discuss anything that they are not comfortable with. And so know that I will ask questions. This will be a conversation. This is not going to be some stiff Q&A like you might see on the news or like how I might normally have to do. And we're just going to try and keep it flowing. Okay? All right. Who wants to go first? So down the line, right? Sure. Okay. So how about, we all know who you are, but let's start with a basic introduction of who you are, who your wife is, who your children are, and about everyday life in Uvalde prior to the shooting.
My name is Javier Cazares. I'm a daughter of Jacklyn Cazares. My wife is Gloria Cazares. Jackie was 9. My older daughter is Jasmine. She is 20 years old. She is going to school. She's working for Senator Gutierrez, a tutor at the college. My other son is in the Marine Corps. He's 26. Been there 9 years. He's staff sergeant, working on his guns. Grandparent of 2 boys. Family life before this was like everybody else was normal. Of course, my son is shipped away, stationed in a different state, but the house was loud. 2 girls, 3 girls, and it was wonderful. After that day, it's quiet. Excuse me, it's quiet, but the memories are still out there. I hear her laugh, her cries, her bickering with her sister. Again, we were a normal family, never thought it would happen, but I see it did. My biggest, I said to you before, living close to the border, anywhere else, my biggest fear was abduction, never a school shooting. But I'm sorry, we're getting way off track, but
No, you're good.
but again, our family life was again full life, with animals and family. There was always something to do with. It's my sister Julissa and my brother-in-law Manuel. They are our parents, and they loved her as much as I did. So it was always all about family love, togetherness, and it still is, but we're just missing that special piece of our heart.
And tell me, were you in Uvalde all your life? Was Jackie? Did your family start there? Tell us a little bit.
Originally from California, raised in Texas. I lived 20 miles away, a little town in Batesville. After high school, left the Army, came back, and started my life with my wife when I was 23 years old. Fast forwarding years, as we stayed there in London. And we planned, that year, we hadn't thought about moving just because a different job opportunity that were presented and stuff. But my wife and we're both close to our families. So we decided to stay, and then tragedy struck.
Are you saying you're not in Uvalde?
No, we're still there, and now I can't leave. My baby girl's still there.
So you will stay in Uvalde?
We'll stay there and fight.
We're going to get to that topic in just a little bit. Don't you worry. So it's been a long time, but the first time I actually met Javier was in 2023 at the Capitol. There was a lot going on during that time. I don't expect anyone to remember me. And there was a slew of journalists who were always trying to talk to Javier and all of the other families. But I watched this fight, and we will certainly come back to this. Mr. Reyes, you ready?
I forgot what the question was.
No, it's okay. We are starting from the beginning. Please, we all know your name, but certainly please introduce yourself again. Tell us about yourself. When did you get to Uvalde? What was life in Uvalde like for you? What did a regular everyday look like for you before that day?
Well, my name is Mr. Reyes. I was a fourth grade teacher in room 111. I was Jackie's teacher. Life before May 24th was good. You live in a small community. You just taught brothers and sisters, because they come up, right? I taught Lexi's sister before, and then I got Lexi, and so, you get kids that are related, brothers and sisters, So being in a small town like that, you just never thought that something like that would happen, And as Mr. Cazares said, you worry more about bailouts and stuff like that, So when we had our lockdowns, it was always, do what we were supposed to, hide in our spots and do all of that. And so it was just, fun and normal, just living in a small town, But then, after May 24th, well, before May 24th happened, I believe, Buffalo had happened. And, so you get to work and you think, this will never happen here. That's the mindset that we have. It will never happen here. Uvalde's too small, And then, of course, May 24th happened. It completely just changed my life completely. So,
You used the word fun to describe your life prior to May 24th. What is a word you would use to describe it now?
sad, anxious, everything that's negative. So it is.
We're gonna come back. Hi down there. Hi.
Oh, I have the mic.
Yeah. So you did introduce yourself, and I think this room certainly knows who you are, but I know that we may have some new faces, so please introduce yourself. Tell us about this project and how this panel came to be.
Absolutely. I am Maddie Frampton Herrera. I am the co-founder of Herrera Dance Project, again. Herrera Dance Project focuses on integrating different parts of the dance community as in one. We really want to pull from every diversity that we can, whether it be old, young, any race, any body size, into our project. And last year, we started with the project of Santos Rodriguez, who was a 12-year-old boy who was shot here in Dallas by police officer Daryl Kane. There was really not any official justice that we felt, and so we pushed more for that last year. And then came around to this year, and me and my husband were like, what do we do? What do we do? That was great. We got the community moving. And I was setting up my classroom, and I was like, man, I have wooden slats, like vents, on my door. And I was like, that is not safe. I'm the first door coming in, being in West Dallas, there's already bullet shots on my window. So obviously this is easily accessible. So like any good teacher, probably all teachers, we look on how to protect our classrooms. And as I was looking, I found the Uvalde story, and I realized that there was nothing that I could do to protect my classroom. The best thing I came up with was a fire extinguisher, and that's what I have to protect my class. And I told Fabian, I said, we have to do this because I need change. Because anytime, and my administrators are amazing, but anytime I asked, it was, we don't have any what? We have no money. There's no funds. And just like Ophelia said it, it's going to cost us. These lives cost money. Parents have to bury their children. They have to weigh with the cost of not having their child. That is more than someone paying for my door or paying for more security. And I wanted this project because I wanted us to shift our focus and to shift our values, to understand that it may be money now, but the outcome could be someone's life. And I thought about every time that I opened a door and it didn't really work right, or maybe it didn't lock correctly, and I was more annoyed. I didn't report it, I didn't go anywhere because it was just an inconvenience. I don't do that anymore. If I see something wrong, I go and I push. And I'm probably the most aggravating person on campus. And that's okay, because I know I'm doing my due diligence, and I'm living for Jackie, and I'm living for the children, and I'm living for Irma and Eva, because that is the purpose of this project, is to remind you to keep living for them. And that's me.
Okay, so, the purpose of this discussion, it's certainly not random. These families and Mr. Reyes and really anyone in Uvalde who at least agrees with their mission, they've been fighting like hell since that day for accountability, for transparency from our state level government, from our state police. Media has certainly been fighting for public records that they decided they could seal, and thankfully this week they are now unsealed, and we are waiting for those. And the fight continues, the investigations continue. And a couple of words to describe this conversation, what we are seeking out, these words that we've set aside, is advocacy, it is transparency, it is accountability, it is truth. And so as we're gonna start with Mr. Reyes and his truth. Mr. Reyes, tell me about waking up on May 24th. That just the start of your day and what you remember.
Yeah, waking up that day, I knew that, I had to dress well because I was going to come in contact with a lot of parents, so you want to make a good impression. So have everything ready. So
And it was award day.
It
you know,
was,
it wasn't, that's why you're just yelling parents, right?
Yeah. Yes, it was awards day that day, and I knew I had to have everything in order. So it was like, my focus was get to school, make sure that I have all my awards ready, and if a child did not let their parent know, send them to the office. Hey, go call your mom or go call somebody to come and see you. You're gonna get an award today. Just try to make everything, good for them, right? So, I get dressed and I just went on my same route every morning, like I do every morning. Go to school, park and get ready and just wait for the kids to come in, So, so just try to get everything ready for the awards. So.
Do you remember, in moments of trauma, it is often that people do not remember the day. They might remember bits and pieces. What is your memory of, your normal morning routine? Like, what is your memory of after that?
Well, like even before that, I own a plant store, so I have a little shop. So I had to take some plants there, and I had just talked to Irma because I had this spray that we use on the plants to make them shiny, make them look healthy. And so it's a little trick to sell y'all plants. And so, she was all excited because she had an ivy that was in her classroom that was from her mom's funeral. So she loved that ivy. And I had told her, hey girl, tomorrow I'm gonna bring some of that spray and we're gonna, make it look shiny, make it look nice. So, we talked and we went to a spray. She was so happy, and so I got the spray. Delivered my plants to the cafeteria because they were going to use them for the awards. And so I did all of that, came back and got the kids and everything, and went into class.
And you went to the awards ceremony.
Then we waited for our time to be called to the cafeteria, and so while we waited, like every teacher does, we work on our stuff, we're behind the computer, trying to put it on all grades and everything, and the kids had, requested to watch a movie, so I was like, okay, well, I'll put a movie on for y'all, and then it was on Netflix, and Rogelio tells me, it's only $3.99, you can buy it, you can pay for it. And I'm like, that's not the problem, sir. The problem is I don't want you to get my password. And so, he was something else. And so I put it on for them, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna see a movie. And so I went back and sat down, and we just waited to be called. And so that time came. It was about 10:30ish, 10:40ish, around that time. So we all get in line and just start heading to the cafeteria. And we went to the cafeteria, and a lot of these kids that worked very hard for their STAR test, they did very well with their grades, and so I was happy for them that they were going to get awards and that a lot of the families were going to be there.
So awards come and go, you head back to the classroom.
Yeah, so after the awards, some of those pictures that you see of the kids now, were taken right after that. And standing there with them, I think about it, like, we didn't know what was about to happen. So we walked back, and some of the kids left home with their parents, and a lot of them decided to stay because they wanted to watch the movie, but I knew that that's not what the main reason was. They wanted to hang around together as much as they wanted. As much as they could, right? And so I stayed with 11 of the kids, and we went back, and we continued with our movie. And I went back and sat behind my computer and started inputting more grades and stuff and doing all of that stuff when, you know, probably there for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes when we heard the first sounds of something loud. I didn't know what it was. Just something loud. So I didn't think nothing of it. The kids were watching the movie. And they were spaced out. And they got a little bit closer. And then it stopped for a minute. And I'm like, the other kids or the other classes must be doing something. I don't know, right? And the time comes to where I heard them very loud, one right after the other, like non-stop. And I was confused. I was confused because it was very loud and I wasn't sure what it was. And Eliana, one of my students, was, you know, got up and she's like asking me, Mr. Reyes, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It's very loud, but it's very close. I don't know what's going on. And so as I'm sitting there behind my computer, I look up to the wall, and as I look at the wall, I see stuff falling off of the wall, and I'm like, what is it? And then I thought, you know what? Those are bullets. That's a gun. And that's when I tell my kids, get under the table. Get under the table. We practice this for lockdowns. We practice all of this. And I tell them, get under the table. And you know, and close your eyes because I don't want you to see anything, right? So that's my first reaction is, and I've done this before with my nieces, right? Like during storms and stuff like that. So I was like, get under the table, close your eyes. And as they're going under there, I go around my desk, and as I'm going around my desk, I look to the door, and that's when I see him standing there. And I just see a shadow, but within that shadow, I see the fire from the gun, and so that's when it hits me on my arm. So he hit me on my arm first, and I fell down to the ground. It was very powerful, and so I fell to the ground, and I just was in pain so bad. And then he came around and shot under the table. I didn't fall facing that direction, but I knew that they were gone, or as I thought, right? And then he did everything to me. He splashed blood on my face. He got my phone, was dropping it on my back, got my water and just spilled it on my back. And then he walked away, and then he came back, and he was putting stuff on the table, you know, you could hear metal clanging, and it sounded empty, like hollow. So I figured that they were the magazines from the gun. And then he was just coughing and walking back and forth. And he was just there for a long time.
You said that he kept doing things to you. We know that there are reports of children who play dead to protect themselves. Is that what you were doing? Did he realize that you were still alive and aware that these things were that he was doing these things to you?
Yeah, because my first reaction was, when I fell to the ground, is don't move, don't speak, because I didn't want the kids to yell out for me, or have a reaction. So I was like, okay, I fell down, I'm gonna act like I'm dead. I didn't know the damage to myself yet. I just knew that my arm hurt and that my shoulder hurt. So I thought to myself, I'm just gonna play dead. I don't want anybody, if he missed somebody, I didn't want them to react, for him to know that somebody was still alive, And so, yeah, that's what I did, is play dead. Yes, and later on he did come back, and I think because he saw me breathing, I believe, and he came back and he shot me on the back.
How many times were you shot?
What? I saw 2 bullets come out from the first time, and then the last one was on my back, so 3 times. Yes.
Everyone okay? You go to the hospital eventually, and as life would have it, it moves on. What has been, I feel weird saying the word healing, but what have you done for yourself since then? Because I guess the reason I feel weird saying the word healing is because how, So what have you done for yourself?
I wouldn't say I haven't done a lot for myself, but like these opportunities that come up, I like to talk about it because I know it brings a lot of pain, especially like to the parents. Like Jacinto, he's a strong man. You look at him, he's the man's man, right? And
I'm gonna an ugly face for you. I'm a big baby.
but by looking at him,
Men show emotion, okay?
but by looking at him, like you would say he's more serious than I am, and I'm just, I just like to be funny, right? But seeing the parents, I know it's painful for them, and it's painful for me, but I could never forget them. And I feel like if I talk about it and I tell my story, that people won't forget them. And that's everything that I do is for them. I can't just give up and say, you know what, I'm not gonna do it anymore. Every opportunity that I get, I talk about it. And it's been a little bit of healing for me with that, but I probably still have a long way to go. But I will never stop talking about them. I can't let nobody forget about them.
What do you do these days? Are you teaching? Are you happy in your home with your plants? Like, what are you doing these days?
Well, I do own a little nursery and plant gift shop. Jalissa shops there. Like if it's Sam's or something, she'll take everything. But yeah, so after being in my home for a whole year doing recovery, I had wound vacs attached to me that needed constant changing. I just had so much to do. And so after being in my home for a year, I needed to find something to, and I had the shop before this happened. I had I was going to complete a year in May, and I closed it down, of course, after. But then I reopened again because I would sit at home and just think about it constantly. And I mean, I still think about it every day. Of course, when you wake up in the morning and your back still hurts and your arm's still heavy and it hurts, what else can you think of, right? So I decided to go and open my nursery again and my gift shop and take my mind off. At least, if I can get an hour or 2 hours without thinking of the day, then I'm doing good. So, yeah, so that's what I do now, so.
Only 1 or 2 hours a day, not thinking about it. It's a lot of time thinking about it. How have your thoughts evolved since then?
In which way?
Like when you think about that day, are you still replaying the events? How have those thoughts evolved over time?
I would say like there's just, I don't replay the whole thing over, like from the beginning. Sometimes now it's just in pieces. I mean, some different things just trigger different times of the events, yeah. So.
Do you feel comfortable sharing what triggers you and what that looks like for you?
There was no balloons that day, but I can't stand to see balloons. Just because I know the sound they make when they're popped. So now we have parties without balloons in my family. Helicopters, just the sound of the helicopters, because I was transferred in a helicopter, makes my stomach upset. Just loud noises that, that catch you off guard, just kind of freak you out, yeah.
And Jackie was in your classroom.
Yes.
With that, I'm going to pivot to Father. Over since that day, I've heard several accounts from several parents about where they were that day. Some were at work, some were grocery shopping, whatever. Where were you? And did you phone call? Was it the social media posts that were posted by Robb Elementary on Facebook? What alerted you and your wife to something going on at Robb?
Can I start from the beginning?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we got time.
Jackie didn't want to go to school that day.
No?
No.
In like I'm a kid and I just don't feel like
Excuse me?
in a way, or like, what are we talking about here?
I really don't know. Her mom woke her up, and so she didn't want to go to school. I'm the lenient one.
And that's on being a girl dad.
And then not knowing that it was her worst family, then I told me, she's like, so I told her, like, well, it is last day of school, you should go. So I'm the one that took her to school that day. And of course, she's in the backseat with her watery eyes, pissed off, but she didn't want to go to school. And I said to her, what's the matter, baby girl? And she's like, I'm upset because I'm happy because school's ending, but I'm upset because I won't see my friends for the rest of the summer. So I assured her that we'll do our best to do so. Or the pool, whatever time, whatever it is, and she was happy about it. And then I went to work, and then I showed up to the fourth family, and she was upset. I don't know if you remember or not, but during that time, she was struggling a little bit on her test. So she was actually going to class, missing lessons, Garcia, and then she went back to her room. So when they went to get their awards, she didn't get one because Mrs. Douglas was there was a mix-up somehow.
Yeah.
So she was upset. Ileana assured her, "Oh, it's okay, you're gonna get one." And so did he. And every time we would go to Worcester or whatever, we would always ask her, "Do you want to go home?" She said no, always. But there was always one student, one of the parents never showed up, so she was there to comfort. And that was her big heart. And so this time, I was going to say, let's go home, because we had a grandson that visiting, and I said, no, I'm not going to bother her. So we were kissed, and she ignored me, telling me hello, and she wanted to do a kiss back. I know that was going to be our last kiss. Went to my sister-in-law to have some lunch. About 30 minutes later, my wife calls and I'm eating, and I didn't ask her fast enough, so she called my sister-in-law. Sister-in-law puts it on speaker, and my wife tells me there's a possible school shooter. And that just raised the hair down my back, because when we get to the college for lockdowns, and we knew what they were, and there's a lot of people that jump out of cars, there's a lot of human trafficking and drug trafficking in that area, and they would do their lockdowns, and it was just like a whole different feeling this time. So that was like the fastest but longest trip I took, and I had passed stop sign, red lights. I left my truck on, I left my doors open, and I ran to where there were windows that actually went into the school area and was inside the school, not on the street, not by the funeral home. I was inside the school perimeter.
Was any law enforcement there by then?
Yeah, there was plenty of policemen out there.
So did they kick you off perimeter by that point?
They tried to, but we kept pushing back, and we of course we were like, dear freaking God, and they're like, we can't because you're here, and we can't do it. Yeah, there's 20, 30 cops right there, and nobody's going in. Around 12:20 something, I heard, I was outside a shot. I'm like, go to your fucking job. I'm sorry, but that's what I said.
I'll do it.
We can't BS going in there. And we kept getting pushed back until we finally pushed it so far back to the last street. But I heard the shots. I saw all the inconsistencies of people not going in, not having shields, not having. I saw it all.
I think to this day you can get on YouTube and there are videos of the parents on the street and there's law enforcement fighting them back. And in those videos you see parents of those who were in room 111 and 112. Did you know the parents of the other students prior to all of this?
Not all of it because of COVID. We would just drop our kids off. I didn't even know the class number. She was. I knew Mr. Reyes, but didn't know exactly who was in there. Where it was at. So that was unknown to me.
What I find personally sort of eerie now is when you see this footage of parents trying to fight their way into campus because they are seeing exactly what you're describing, law enforcement not going into the building. You see the parents who now know each other really well and did it before. You can see them all doing the same thing, trying to get in campus, and they didn't know that they were about to learn about the other people around them and what sort of fight they would begin and continue. I think in hindsight that's really great. So you're on campus, they're fighting you off. They are there for 77 minutes before they finally enter the classroom, but I imagine you didn't know from the outside that they had waited that long. What did your day look like? I mean, how long were you out there?
from 11:33 probably 11:15 when I got there. Not knowing how many police were in there, but again, when I was on the perimeter, you know, there was plenty of cops there. You know, chaos. Being there after those shots occurred, you know, policemen started breaking windows and laying children out of the rooms that were on the opposite side of 111 and 112 at Wing. I seen children passing by and were scared and crying, and I'm telling them, the ones that are closest to me, is run, don't look back. And I'm just hoping to see glimpse of my daughter. And they're back.
You see the kids coming out, and I understand you never see your daughter come out. But at that time, are you thinking, oh, there's still hope? At that point, are they asking you to go to the community center, like, or the reunification center?
I wasn't to that part yet. I was still in that area, and you're hearing bits and pieces of policemen speak, and from what I heard there was Mrs. Avila had been shot. Not knowing who she was or how close she was to that classroom. And it's sad to say it wasn't total fatal. So, you know, at that point I had that glimpse of hope that, okay, she is okay. Maybe she went out to the other side. But again, during all that time, they have certainly pushed back. Things right here, more information about that. You know, we at the Civic Center, and so we had one of my nieces was there. We sent her that way, and when she said she's not here, well, then that started putting two and two together. Most of the wing was already outside, so it was missing 11 and 12. So yeah, and that's where we got to start getting worse with the parents, because we want answers and nobody's telling us anything.
Was it not until later that evening that you all received word? I remember it being late, but I don't know that I can recall the time either by the time I got to you.
Well, actually, for us, we got a call from my niece that had gone to the Civic Center. She said she saw an ambulance go by. So she decided to go ahead that way. She actually passed up the ambulance, got to the emergency room area, and called my wife, and she was like, "It's Jacklyn." She's like, "Is her?" I can see her face as she was unconscious. I need a beer box. So
I'm just gonna be the tissue holder. Damn, Natalie.
So my niece calls and tells us that it's her, and it's my wife and I, and my brother that are at the funeral home. As a dad, I snapped, I hauled ass, I let my wife there, I jumped over 2 fences, got into my truck that I forgot that I left it on. I had to leave and cuss out one of the cops on my way out and told them to slow down. And we get there and nobody knows who she is, if she's there. And they ask the question, well, what's her name? Her name is Jacklyn. And like, well, we don't have her by name. Well, how would you know? She's unconscious. My niece was there trying to tell her that's my niece, that's my little cousin, but nobody listened. So we waited almost 3 hours before they said, we actually showed pictures and we got information, so almost 3 hours later, and I identified my daughter that day. A lot of people don't know that. considered a school. So no, I'm one of, I think the only parent that saw the wound that took my daughter's life, and that I identified that day.
Is it a good time to take questions from the audience? Is there anybody that has a question for Mr. Reyes or myself or Mr. Cazares? Yes, go ahead.
Well, first I want to express my gratitude for both of you for having the courage to come here and share your story. And I wanted to know if you could change a state law or a federal law, which one would you focus on?
We've tried to, I know banning these weapons is a hard thing, especially now. Our biggest thing was to raise the age from 18 years old to 21 to buy an assault weapon or a rifle like that. At 18 years old, I joined the Army, and learned how to use weapons. But did I buy one? No, I did buy one. I don't know why I do. I have weapons. I'm a gun owner, I believe in the Second Amendment to an extent. But it never says you have to be 18 or should be 18 to buy a weapon at that magnitude. Young kids. I'm going to say I was one of them, but never did I ever think about doing what he did. If anything, it's raising the age. I mean, it's doable, but still people, even at that, and the bill that we're trying to pass is watered down, and it's really that. You can buy one if you're 18 and you're in the military. You can buy it if you're in the shooting club, type of thing. If it's a gift to you, okay, but you buying it yourself at 18, then no. After you're 21. I've gotten the response, my son is 18 to go to war. Yeah, but I was in the Army. Did I have that weapon on me all the time? No. Training or combat. That was it. You don't carry it around all the time. So, again, just raising the age from 18 to 21 is something that we're really focused on.
And if I may, in 2023, Javier and a lot of the other families came to the Capitol every week from Uvalde to Austin. That drive kind of sucks, guys. It's long and it's boring. And the Capitol is confusing and it's hard to track down your lawmakers. And even more than that, it's hard to convince them of your cause. Because they work for us, right? But sometimes people have deeper pockets for them than we do, right? And in 2023, I remember the families had a bill drafted. It was House Bill 2744. That is the Raise the Age bill that Hadaad is talking about. And in the state of Texas, you have to be 21 to buy a handgun, but you can be 18 years old to get an automatic weapon like the shooter had that day.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. You said it, not me, girl. I already said too much, I get fired. And, they relentlessly tracked down lawmakers every week to explain to them why this made no sense to them, or why they felt like it made no sense for the state of Texas for this law to be in place. They were no longer asking for an assault rifle ban at this point. They were just asking to raise the age. 18 to 21 is not that big of a deal, right? It's not that big of a deal. It's not a lot. And gun reform has not passed in Texas of any kind, for that matter. Storage laws, red flag laws, etc. And I say progressive gun reform has not passed in Texas since the early 90s. But these families came to the Capitol every week and advanced House Bill 2744 through a committee responsible for overseeing this bill and how far it would go. In fact, they got Republicans to flip their decision on how they felt about gun reform. That has not happened since prior to 1994. the families who joined that day, and they were all sitting in the front, face to face with these lawmakers who sit in this like round desk at the front, and they're taking this vote on this bill. Do we advance this bill for other lawmakers to consider? Because there's a long process, but they were at the first step, and they just needed a majority vote, and you see no, no, yes, yes, yes. They flipped seats. And that was such, I remember being in the back of the room that day with other journalists and cameramen, and by the time the last vote came down from the last lawmaker at the front, it did not, I don't think it clicked to anyone at first that 8 had voted, that it advanced 8-5. And I think we were all kind of holding our breath, and we didn't even realize that we weren't breathing until finally someone, the lawmaker at the front, the chairman says, House Bill 2744 advances. And suddenly everyone goes, and cheers erupt, and people start crying. I mean, it has been 30 years. And if I may, before we go back to questioning, that's kind of like the purpose tonight, right? Is we are sharing your stories and the stories through art to keep these conversations going. To remind the public that when you are relentless in the pursuit of what you feel is right and what makes sense and what will protect future children like mine who will be in school in a few years, or like yours who will be in school or are in school, if you're loud enough, they will hear you. And it is always especially important to remember that at the end of the day, people in our capital work for you, and that's it. And that's why it's so important that these stories are told over and over and over again, and why it is so honorable and noble, as hard as it is, to continue to keep that wound open by sharing it. So I guess this is just me saying thank you, I guess, again.
Thank you.
Because it's important. Y'all did that. Y'all did that. A question for?
Trying to come up with a question, make the question correct, or make it correct. As part of Blue Line, we were able to visit the community a couple of times. I was able to be there over in December. And I was really struck by hearing the families say how appreciative they were of some of the donations that we were able to take and share with the families. And I know statewide, nationwide, people were moved to donate. My question is about how you think the system that we have in our state is set up to support the families that have been through so much trauma, that need the support from the state and other actors to be there when they need it most. Because what we heard often was, this is the first support we're getting. We're waiting and waiting and waiting. And I don't know how long it's supposed to give. Maybe you're getting now all the support that the state could offer. What could we do better? Or what has that been like?
There was this LULAC helped us. Again, I started LULAC Council here, and so does Nevada, and I thank you guys again for the support you guys did or gave us. There was other funds from around the world. But the Texas had the Texas had this thing called victim. Crime victims. I can't remember the name, but it made it so difficult and so many pages of questions that I don't think anybody has got any type of funds from them. I'm talking about people that lost their jobs. They said anywhere from $1,000 to $50,000. Nobody's gotten it yet. And for Sarah Gutierrez, we had been trying to fight for that for a while now. They were asking questions, and we're asked back, like they wanted time of death, they wanted course, we didn't have any of that. And also, that's one thing that kept anybody from, for a long time, to file or get those applications filled out. I think we just gave up because it was too much. And the funds are there, but again, we hope that there doesn't have to be anywhere else where people need those funds. Because, again, it was too much. Most of them, even some questions were wrong at that time, and we have to move on.
I would say my experience was different as far as crime victims. I had everybody there at BAMC, so I had FBI, I had all kinds of people there, and they applied for me, and they did help me, but it's not enough, or you lose your job and it's not. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's just it's a slap in the face. Is what it is. Yeah. And workman's comp is workman's comp has to change too in Texas, because that's what they've given us. They've given us workman's comp, and they send you to doctors. I would compare it like to being a vet. You go to the hospital that they assign you, and that's it. Well, they assign us doctors. There was after they saved my arm and everything, there was a doctor that wanted to amputate my arm, and I said, why? Just because the metal broke? I'm trying to use my arm. I'm trying to do things for myself because nobody's gonna do it for me. And so I broke the metal plate. And when I broke it, and I went to a new doctor, that's after getting out of BAMC, he was like, I think we're just gonna have to amputate your arm. And I told him, yeah, word. But yeah, and I mean, yeah, the money that y'all gave us, I mean, I was so appreciative because, again, not all funds have been distributed equally, or a lot of other people have benefited from the monies, and for example, only because they were there on the grounds, they got monies, but they weren't laying in the classroom, almost dead, and so, but they still got monies, so there's a lot of things that have been unfair with the monies. And of course, well, money's not the important thing for me, but when you can't work, you have to pay your bills somehow. And so,
And that's what we heard so much. People were saying, my other children don't want to, I can't be home.
Yeah.
I can't go work. How do I support my family?
Just one of the question you asked as well is that, so they brought in all these people to help with that fund, or didn't know what they were doing. They were trying to help, but a lot of these are young people, and I mean, of course, they've never gone through anything like this before. They're kind of blind and trying to help us out as well. So it was a big shit show, honestly. Again, it was, their mind was in the right place, but they didn't know what they were doing as well. And of course, we were getting the grieving process, and we weren't even paying attention to all that stuff either, but they didn't help out very much.
You wanted to say something?
I wanted to share my experience from how I from the day that incident happened, and then that Friday when they announced the teacher left the door. Right?
Would you like to sit in here in the mic?
I'm okay, great.
Are you sure?
I mean, if they can hear me, I'm okay.
Okay. Can y'all, is everyone hearing good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that happened, my children to be away for a few days because we didn't know how people were gonna react towards me, so we left. So I didn't leave my home for June, July, August, September, because I was scared. In September, I started attending school board meetings because of the superintendent, so I felt like I had to fight. But I was going to the doctor, I was seeing doctors, I'm trying to work with workman's comp. You need a psychiatrist or neurologist. This shaking is because of that day. You need a psychiatrist, a neurologist, I'm going to take a seeing doctor after doctor. And I was 58 years old at the time, and I was in good health. I didn't take any type of medication, and now they were just going left and right. But workman's comp told me, you have to find your own psychiatrist. You have to find your own neurologist. Everything was on me. And I'm like, I can't even function mentally. How am I supposed to do all this? You know? And I think like in every medical aspect, I was failed. I didn't find out until November that they were helping families because I wasn't receiving any help. And so I think it was a year after they had some ladies come and they say, hey, they can help. I haven't gone back to work since that day. I've already been fired, so because I didn't return, so I'm not working. And I'm always, I get whatever I get from workman's comp, but that goes to my rent and my bills, you know, and I'm like, okay, I have to go to work. And then I ask myself, like, you can't even function at home, how are you gonna go to work? Every agency that I go to, we don't have any work, we don't have any work, we don't. And that's all the time, you know. So, as far as like the medical, the position that I was hiding under the counter, so my feet were like this. So that's why I can't walk. I'm working on it, but I still use a cane to help you walk because I was hiding under there for like 45 minutes. And I'm not young, so the body doesn't work right anymore. But I filed for disability through my job, and I was denied. I'm like, how am I being denied? A few days later, I call back and I tell them, why are you denying me? I have to fight for this. Tell me what I have to do. And she was like, ma'am, you have to fill out this form and you have to write a letter. And I said, do you know who I am? Nobody has bothered to come over here and say, oh, well, she worked at Uvalde CISD. Let's speak with her. She was at the shoot like nobody. And I said, you don't even know? I'm functioning every day. I said, you know, and I let that lady have it. And then I said, I'm so sorry on the other hand, but you need to know why I'm filing for disability. And she said, ma'am, can you get that form to me today? No. Now you're really gonna get a form. And I did, and I qualified for it, but I qualified for it for like 3 months. But you know what claim they picked up on my disability? The injury to my foot. And that's why they took it away, because I haven't been able to see a foot doctor because workman's comp doesn't approve it. And so I'm like, but I'm suffering from anxiety, depression, PTSD. You're not going to claim that on disability? She said, no, ma'am, it's just your foot. Really?
So there's other systems that are broken. Just workman's comp. There's just a lot of things that are just broken in the system.
If I could say something here, because we've been through this before. Uvalde wasn't the first boy that's happened, right? It's been lots of years under this control of the government that we've had. I want to say in the last 15 years, or maybe even longer, 30 years, right? But when we fought at the legislature to raise the age, the only reason that we were heard wasn't just because we've been there all the time, it was because of what happened out in Texas. So let's not forget about that, because they ignored us entirely, right? So one of the other things that they did is they ignored the needs of the families, just as what you're hearing here today, right? Now, who's at fault there, right? It's the politicians that are not afraid to lose their jobs. That's it. They're not afraid to lose their jobs, right? When we did a lot of research, we found out that Victims First came about when the Virginia Tech shooting happened, right? It was a fund that was established to help the needs of the families financially and medically, short-term and long-term care, right? Representative Plessa from Collin County filed a bill this last legislature, right? This last session, I want to say. And you know what? Zero was heard about it. And that was intended to put money from the state fund, a little bit of the billions of dollars that are in there, for long-term care for the families for mass violence events, not just mass shootings, but mass violence events, right? Zero was done.
So all of this, I apologize. We have about 5 minutes left. And I know that this has been such a lively conversation and one full of intention. And, but this conversation, and I should say, again, thank you for sharing those experiences. All of that to say, right, is that not only are we still working for transparency, and not only are we still advocating, but you're still waiting on resources from help on that day. So we have a long way to go. But before we have to go, I want to give the floor to, well, the reason we're even here is because of the project. Well, yes. Well, how this was planned, I should say, was because of how art is crossing paths with advocacy for these families. And so if you could take a moment to say,
Please.
yeah,
Absolutely.
you know, you talked about how you came up with the idea, but this is to keep the conversations going.
Yes.
That's why we're here tonight.
Yes, so I really want to emphasize not just the story. Obviously the story is very important, but I want to emphasize our call to action. So I felt like a lot of discussion boards, I went to discussion panels and events, they would say, do more, you need to go and you need to be an advocate. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. What do I do? So I'm going to tell you what you can do, right? When you see something wrong, when it's even so minuscule as a door that doesn't work right, say something. Get out there and vote. If you see a child struggling and they are not getting attention and you see them falling in the cracks or making a wrong decision, call. Make somebody aware and make sure that they follow through. You know, we talked about what we can do at the state and federal level. I did not realize that children that have risk assessments, if they are not followed through, there is no repercussion for the school. And I think that's wrong, because I feel like risk assessments may not have stopped what happened. Maybe it could have lessened. Maybe someone would be anticipated, could have acted faster to that. So that is what we can do. And the biggest thing you can do is you can vote. So make sure you are at our event tonight, because if you're not registered to vote, you can register to vote then.
Please vote. Please.
That wraps up our discussion panel tonight. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate everything y'all do for our Dance Project. Thank you.
Let me say something real quick. Give us a second.
Okay,
Javier Cazares, 9 years old, wanted to be a vet. She wanted to go to Paris. Loved her family, loved her dogs. She was my daughter, a human being, not a number, not a statistic. So please remember her name. Thank you.
Thanks for having me here. I know being a journalist is not the most popular job in 2025, but I hope, thanks for allowing me to be here. I'm honored to be in this room and be part of the conversation, because I think if there's anywhere we can meet, is that, you know, despite any politics, however you feel, I think somewhere we can all meet is that our children are precious, our lives are precious, and they're always worth protecting and fighting to protect. Okay?
Let's give Natalie a hand.